Okay, so I'm going to introduce Dharmamati. What a pleasure. I live with this man, and so it's always a joy. And I guess, and impossible to say much, and I won't say, but just to say, I think it's a privilege really to have someone who is still around, has been around since, well, helped bring Sri Ratna over and started the movement here in Australia all those years ago, and was ordained, Dharmamati was ordained in 1979, so it's been a while, and he's got... So he's got a wealth of experience that he speaks from, and I enjoy that, and the stories of the old days, and the many tales, and also the richness of the spiritual life, living the spiritual life. And I feel like it's very much coming from that place of imagination, and I share that in common with him, in that we're both artists, we both, the imagination, the imaginal, which is the imagination illumined by the transcendental, or what's beyond, is important to us. Not that we know what it is, but that when we aren't sort of, because we both watch science fiction movies together, and we're both into that genre, but also I think what's really important to us both is the richness of the imagination and of art and story. And Dharmamati's actually done a master's in Jungian psychology, and so these kinds of that's rich in imagery as well, obviously. And so I'm looking forward to what he says today on the theme of art. And the other thing about Dharmamati, just to say briefly, is he's very humble as well. He'll be honest with you, and very kind, and great sense of humour. So there's those elements to you too, which I really appreciate, that you're down to earth and real with this so many good qualities. I can't possibly do them justice, so over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Not much to live up to. So the title of this talk is The Arts, Imagination in the Spiritual Life. And although I'm biased towards visual arts, I'm including all arts in this, all creative fields. In fact, I would even like to include science. I know they're often at loggerheads with one another, but science is also an art, as is mathematics. And so, in a way, it's all those creative fields that human beings have an endeavour in. I wasn't going to start like that, but anyway, it doesn't matter, that's good. Quite a few years ago, I had the good fortune to be Sangharakshita's secretary for about nearly 4 years. And during that time, there was somebody who was creating a booklet on the distinct emphases of Sri Ratna. or as it was called then, FWO, Friends of the West Peopleist Order, which we changed our name. And Bhante, and I call Sangharakshita Bhante from now on. So when I say Bhante, I mean Sangharakshita. Bhante at that time had macular degeneration, couldn't actually read anything himself. So I read all his correspondence, any communication that were going to him, I had to read to him. So I read everything to him. So I had to read the whole of this booklet on, it was on the distinct emphases of true Dharma. It was the draft. They hadn't put it out yet because I don't think that they always ran things by Bhante. And so we went through all these distinct emphases, of which I can't remember. It doesn't matter. It's incidental to this story. And at the end, Bhante looked at me and he says, "Do you know what's missing?" And I said, "I haven't got a clue, Bhante." And he says, "What is missing is the importance of the arts." As really being very important. He was so adamant about this. I had to start, getting on to the person who was writing it and making sure that this was put in. So why are the arts important? Why are they important to us? It's a really good question. And in a sense, it can only be answered personally, like why it's important to you as an individual. But on my own reflection, there are a few areas that I think are important. One is art helps me, or the arts help me go deeper in an understanding of myself and humanity. I can develop that sort of deeper understanding. And there's a deep communication. Art is pointless without communication. It's a way of communicating, isn't it? Art existed in its various forms before language. And language is an art as well. We include language in that, particularly in the realms of poetry and imagination. It breaks down the barrier between self and other. It gets us past our selfishness, in a sense. And another important aspect of it is that it can give us insight. It takes us out of our normal way of seeing things. I mean, I don't want to get into the debate of good versus bad art. This is up to you because it is very personal. What is good in one person's eyes? Like, I love ABBA. I love ABBA. Aridama hates ABBA. We tease each other over this. But it's, it's still what, if it's good for you in your spiritual life, it's going to find a way of getting to you. Of actually turning you around, of making you see things a bit differently. I don't know whether when you go around an art gallery sometimes, or an installation, you go into an installation, particularly an installation, it shifts your consciousness. And then you come out and you start looking at the fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher has become a work of art. Because what has happened is, and this is the important thing, in our minds, it's what shifts our consciousness. It's a shift in consciousness. Sangharakshita Bhante talked about the conscious surrender to the beautiful. Again, what is beautiful to you is not necessarily beautiful to others, but that doesn't matter. It's what's beautiful to you. The conscious surrender to the beautiful, whatever that means for you. Now, that's quite an interesting idea, isn't it? And Lama Govinda, he actually wrote about this in 1936. This is nothing new. It's hard to bring these things into the contemporary idiom at times, but I don't mind that. And he said, the contemplation of the beautiful, according to the Buddha's own teachings, makes us free from all selfish concerns. It lifts us to a plane of perfect harmony and happiness. It creates a foretaste of ultimate liberation, this encouraging us to strive on towards realization. So even the Buddha talked about that. He talked about kalyana. Kalyana means the beautiful. We use it in the terms of kalyana mitra, which is the beautiful friend, but he used it in other contexts, particularly in the sense of the natural world. You know, nature, when we're in nature, we feel liberated, actually, don't we? From just looking at a tree, spending time looking at a tree, there's this sort of feeling of liberation. So there's this connection. What the appreciative awareness does, which is part of art. You know, I'm not talking about just creating art. I'm talking about appreciating art as well. I'm not talking in the terms of an artist. You know, you don't all have to be artists for this to be of benefit. So that appreciation of nature, appreciation of connection, of actually what is this artist trying to tell me, for example? Where's the communication? We need to sit with it. Watch people around art galleries. You know, it amuses me sometimes. I sit there sketching them. I like sketching people in art galleries. They look at a painting, they're there for like, if they're lucky, 30 seconds. How on earth can you understand a painting in 30 seconds? Same with a piece of music. You need to revisit it. You know? And then as you revisit these things, film is another thing. When a film has that beauty of art in it, or insight, it can give you some insight into reality. It really is worth watching again and again, because more is drawn out. So spending time, actually giving it time, is really important. I've got a little story. I was where was I? Got it a long time ago. In Spain, somewhere in Spain. Where's the Miro Museum?
Madrid.
Barcelona. It's Barcelona. Anyway, I went to the Miro Museum in Barcelona, and I was walking around, and I was sort of enjoying it. But then I found this installation that is sometimes there. I believe I've read about it. It's not always there. And it was 3 walls in a square with a seat in front. And I sat down there, and all there was a line on each wall, one line on each wall, just one line. I sat there and I just absorbed it. And in the end, these lines, particularly one of them, became so sublimely beautiful. Yeah. I was completely transported, totally transported. In fact, I was in tears. By this line brought tears to my eyes. A single line. That was extraordinary. I have this thing about, you know, not with when it comes to art, I never look at the title first. You know? It's just not something I do. I want it to speak to me without the concept, you know, without the artist's concept. I want it to speak to me. It should be able to speak to me without the concept. You know. And then what the title was, and after I looked at it, I thought, wow. I have to say, the title was Painting on White Background for the Cell of a Recluse. For the cell of a recluse. So this is a meditator, you know, somebody who's actually in a cell that is meditating. So, and I'm a meditator, and have been even then for quite a few years. So it was this, I felt this resonance. And that's another thing about art that's really important, is resonance. Another important thing about the arts is it can break down our habitual way of seeing things. I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's an important point. We can get into a rut of existence, can't we? We see things, it's just the endless round every day. You know, I sometimes say that at breakfast to Arya Dharma, we're having our porridge together, and I say the endless round. It's like that, isn't it? But then, with the magic of an important part of human life, human consciousness, we can actually instill magic into something. Can bring the magic back. It can, we get jaded, don't we, through life? And we have to sort of find a way to reinvigorate ourselves. And art can do that. And there's, again, a quote from Lama Govinda: the longer we can abstain from seeing things habitually, the more profoundly we shall be conscious of their true nature, which goes beyond concepts and definitions. Habit kills intuition because it prevents living experience. I'll say that again because I think it's so good. The longer we can abstain from seeing things habitually, the more profoundly we shall be conscious of their true nature, which goes beyond concepts and definitions. Habit kills intuition because it prevents living experience. But how do we do this? And this is where the imagination comes in. Or what Arya Dharma has mentioned, the imaginal faculty. And I think it's important when we think of imagination, we're not talking about just fantasy. We're talking about a really important function that we all have. It's part of the human mind. You wouldn't be able to get up in the morning without imagination. You know, it's everything in this room has been created through imagination. Somebody's imagination has thought about the bars on that wall, even on that window. The imagination has created that Buddha. That's another story, because a good friend of mine who we were partners, we were part of the team that originally set things up in Sydney, bought that in Nepal and basically put it in a backpack and backpacked it to Sydney. So that's the origins of that particular one. That was Dipankara, who unfortunately, what was it, about 5 years ago, died of epileptic complications. I miss him anyway. Yeah, so that's come from imagination. You know, these paintings on the wall. This has come from Arya Dharma's imagination, so we've all got this faculty, and it helps us engage with life in a creative way. And this is a word I haven't mentioned yet, isn't it? The importance of creativity. There's a whole area that Sangharakshita went into, the reactive and creative mind he talked about. You know, the reactive mind basically just reacts. So we just react to things. We're like a Pavlov's dog, you know. We get the stimulus and then we act. But we want to repeat it again and again and again. Particularly pleasurable things. But we even seem to repeat painful things, don't we? We get attached to pleasure and pain, both. But there's a greater pleasure, a greater bliss. In a way, that story of that line on the wall by Miro is an example of how I got out of a habitual way of thinking, and I was elevated. I was liberated at that moment. There was a liberated consciousness. So it's imagination that does that, because if I hadn't engaged in that with imagination, with a creative way of seeing things, it would have meant nothing. It would have just been a line on the wall. You know? That's all it would have been. So what? So it takes that communication, that spiritual communication, if you like, between humans to actually get beyond, to go beyond our normal way of seeing things, our habitual way of seeing things, getting beyond the habit. So how, you know, one of the questions is, well, where's truth in this? Where's reality? Is beauty truth? You know? Why is that relationship, you know, classically? I'm going to have to leave that as a question. I don't have the answer. The whole thing, actually, I have to tell you, I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. It's a complete mystery. Yeah? It is a complete mystery. And one of the beauties, I think, of art or the arts is it helps us embrace that mystery. Yeah? Yeah. It really helps us embrace that mystery and helps us through this existence. Yeah. Yeah. And we're all in it together, believe it or not. You might think it's all only happening to you, but we're all in it together. Yeah. So I think one of the things that's important to learn is to actually embrace that mystery with openness. You know, that you can feel an openness to life. Yeah, things are out to get you. It's a fact. But, you know, death comes, regardless of whether it comes tomorrow or something, it comes. So it behoves us to enchant our lives more, you know, to actually engage with the imagination, to see that actually beauty and truth are connected. And I'd like to conclude with a quote from he was an art teacher, and so the language is a little old-fashioned, but he was an art teacher in the 1890s to the 1900s, the early 1900s, and it is oh God, I've forgotten his name. No, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He was an art teacher anyway. So in conclusion, and I think he summed it up quite well. One of these days we may know more about the mysterious effect the arts have upon us. And what is the connection between beauty and our feeling for ultimate realities? In the meantime, we cannot do better than to rest content with Keats. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. To which creed he might have added goodness. For truth, beauty, and goodness are three things that uplift, and by which we soar upwards towards the radiance of ultimate things, are in fact that radiance as it reveals itself through the life of thought, of feeling, and of action. For are not truth, beauty, and goodness but three aspects of one ultimate reality? Thank you.